If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com. Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, it is another busy news night. Fridays are never boring, especially here on the Rita Cosby Show. There are so many major stories on the horizon. Many people wondering, will President Trump actually do another strike on Iran? Remember, he did one many months ago. And could another one be on the horizon? Could it be maybe a strategic strike where maybe they are hitting an IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps locations? There's a whole bunch of different potential targets, and everyone's wondering, will he maybe do a little strike and say, hey, Iran, I'm going to give you one more chance to come to the negotiating table? Or really, or else in a big way. Can you imagine the might of the U.S. and Israel and who knows who else? But that could potentially happen at any moment. Everybody wondering. Meantime, definitely a blow in the U.S. Supreme Court against President Trump on tariffs. And when this decision came down, it was really surprising. Here it is on a Friday, and this big bombshell about the tariffs came down. It wasn't such a surprise that they necessarily voted against President Trump. It just was like they've been sitting on it for months upon months. And that was one of President Trump's arguments. What took them so long? If this was their decision, why did they let him go down so far down the gate with all these countries with these trade deals? And President Trump has definitely negotiated some very strategic ones. So here he is. As soon as the decision came down, President Trump, I called him Rocky earlier today, guys, because he just gets up. No matter what comes from the Supreme Court, no matter what happens on any of these decisions, he just kind of keeps going up the steps in Philadelphia and keeps on coming at them and says, no matter what, we're going to come at it a different direction. We're going to do this 10% across the board. We're not going to give up. And he said he was very upset with the decision. Here he is right after it came down.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country.
And he also took some swipes at the high court justices. You know, President Trump never holds back. Here it is.
They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no.
So President Trump comes out swinging and says, you know what? We're still going to go forward. We'll just come at it from a different direction. Does anybody out there actually think that anyone's going to get back a dime from these deals? And even if they try, it's going to be years upon years upon years. In the meantime, also on a Friday night, always some big developments coming out. Now, Pima County, Arizona Sheriff Chris Nanos, he's the one who's been at the heart of the Nancy Guthrie case. She is still missing. I can't believe this. 3 weeks now. And he is now under big time fire as there are reports that he was locking down the investigation into the Nancy Guthrie abduction essentially limiting all decisions to just himself and 2 senior officials. He also has faced a lot of criticism for sidelining the FBI and allowing 2 of his senior officers who instead to be in charge of the decisions. How does that seem right? You got the best, greatest law enforcement force in the world, the FBI, and then you say, no, we're not going to use them. We're instead going to use my 2 senior officials. There are also reports that they want to go and check out Mexico, but Mexico is saying they haven't gotten a formal request yet. How does that make any sense? Why would you not have a formal request to Mexico 5 minutes after Nancy Guthrie disappeared on February 1st? The U.S.-Mexico border is only about an hour away or so from Tucson, Arizona. It is 3 weeks later, and they haven't asked for a formal cooperation from Mexico? Does that make any sense to any of you? It does not to me. I would have right away said, you know what? There's something fishy. There's something suspicious. Needless to say, why not just check Mexico? Have them have their ire up? I would have them looking at the border. I have them looking into any intel that they might have. You never know whether it's an organized cartel or a small group or just an individual. But either way, the border is right there. Why would you never even put a formal request in to the officials there in Mexico? And again, literally about an hour away. So there's a lot of criticism tonight at this sheriff, Chris Nanos, who is coming under a lot of fire for people saying he's pompous, he's inept, are some of the words that people are saying. And this is really very, very troubling. Also, there are officials coming out today saying that there may be more than one person involved in this. Sheriff Mark Lamb is quoted. He's been on Fox News a lot. He is from a neighboring Arizona county. And he essentially came out and said that he thinks that there would be accomplices involved in this situation. Because he said, you know, you look at it, there's a lot of layers here. And for somebody to maybe help in the planning, for somebody to help in the abduction of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, for all of these different things, all these different steps, they really feel like, you know what? It had to be more than one individual. So where does the case go from here? The Arizona Attorney General tonight saying, no, the case isn't cold, but it's not looking good now that it is 3 weeks. That is shocking. I never imagined this case would not be solved 3 weeks later between all the local authorities and the FBI. And there's like 400 officers apparently working this case. 400. That's an extraordinary amount. And you got Nancy Guthrie on the, you know, we have no idea where she is. Is it local? Is she over the border? Is she out of the country? Is she still maybe in the Catalina foothills, which is right around the place where her house is? And you got the video of the guy. I mean, you would have thought that would have blown the case wide open. Apparently, officials are still trying to track down the gun. They're trying to track down a lot of things tied to that guy. The backpack that they believe was, of course, purchased, they believe, either in Walmart or a subsidiary. You would have thought that would have been the big break in the case. And yet here we are 3 weeks later. And now we're hearing that this guy is keeping the case close to the vest. That's incredible. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Alice in Ohio on line 4. Alice, your thoughts tonight.
Good evening. Iran cannot be trusted. They're responsible for October 7th, the attack in Israel. They're responsible for the terror around the world. They regard us as the big Satan. Israel is the little Satan. They have been given enough time. We have talked to them, and they said, well, give us more time. We talked to them. Give us more time. No. We've already gone after their nuclear warheads. They need to be stopped altogether. We have to cut them off altogether, cut off the head of the snake. They need a regime change. They've murdered thousands of their own people. Ugly things.
Yeah, these people are monsters. There's no question. Let me ask you, Alice, you hit a great point there that you believe a lot of this is obviously games by them. And I do too. I believe that it's all talk, and then they never give up anything. And then we also see them doing these sort of war games. They're doing these drills with the Russians. The Russians buzzed by Alaska last night. They were intercepted. They're, of course, working closely with Iran, and they were doing drills off the coast of Iran, too. So there's a lot of brinksmanship now, but I agree. I think it's just hogwash by them. They've had every chance. And what's remarkable, Alice? President Trump, really to his credit, has been very, I think, incredibly flexible in saying, come to the table, come to the negotiating table. He's given them 5,000 chances. And there are reports tonight that he might do it again. He might even give them a strike that, potentially he's not ruling out maybe some sort of pinprick, strike at a major headquarters or something to say, hey, we know where you are. We can get you. You want it again times 5,000? Or if not, come to the table. But maybe it might take a little bit of military action. Or who knows? They may just say too bad. And then this becomes really a full throttle attack by the U.S. and I'm sure Israel and who knows who else. But where do you see this going, Alice? Because this dance has been going on for a long time. And I think President Trump, who clearly doesn't have a goal of going to war, he likes to avoid war at all costs. He has bent over backwards for the Iranians. And again, it seems like they have done nothing to comply.
We need to go after Iran. I think every time he gives them more time, they're building more nuclear warheads. They're doing more. No, they've gone back on their word too many times. Enough is enough. I'm not one to promote any kind of warlike activity. Not at all. This has to stop. They're a threat to us. They're a threat to Israel, our biggest ally. They're a threat to anyone. And the Russians need to see how strong we can be. We have the best military in the world, beautiful military minds. They're ready and trained, and they need to be set into action. I think as soon as possible. He's given them enough. He's given them enough rope that they can hang themselves. They need to be stopped.
Yeah, he definitely has been more than flexible, more than kind, offered so many different layers, and yet they seem to still be on this path. And I think part of it is, Alice, these people are ideologues. I mean, they are, they're not just, I don't think, just saying things. They truly do believe in, meeting the 50 virgins at some point. And they may meet them soon. They might even meet them this weekend. Who knows? Because you never know with President Trump. He likes that element of surprise. But that's the problem with these people, that you can't trust them. They never have changed their ways. And their intent, like you said, destroying, their mission, they're still chanting death to, even today. There are reports today that out of the region, they're in these, in the mosque, they're chanting death to Israel, death to America. And, there does not seem to be any sign of change with these people. So, it's going to be interesting to see how President Trump handles this. And also, I'm curious, Alice, what kind of intel they have on the ground there too, because of course there's a lot of folks in the resistance, those courageous people you talked about that sadly, like you said, are being slaughtered by their leadership. And they have the guts and courage to rise up. And we're hearing reports that the leadership is killing them even in their hospital beds. I mean, these people have zero mercy. And yet I wonder too also the kind of intel and coordination that's going on with them and the U.S., also the Israeli government. Does the Israeli government or the U.S. have any good intel, folks? Maybe any of these, Iranian Revolutionary Guard that on the surface seem real hardcore, but maybe privately are flipping and cooperating, because that would be amazing. And if suddenly, they're ready, poised to take over, if, the Ayatollahs are suddenly wiped off the face of the earth. So there could be a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I have no doubt about that. Alice, thank you very much. I know how much you love this country and love freedom, as I do too. Thank you, Alice. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll continue with your calls, everybody, after the break. You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
It's The Rita Cosby Show.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Payne Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care. Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Rita Cosby is on.
And let's continue your calls on this busy news night. Are we on the brink of some major military action against Iran? And also major action from the U.S. Supreme Court today. You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey on line 2. Go ahead, Sandra.
Hi, Rita. Good evening. Rita, I was thinking about Savannah Guthrie. You know, she probably listens to your show. She probably listens to all the news. And she's hearing that this sheriff is really not that great. If this was my mother, don't I have a right to say, you know what, Sheriff, thank you very much, but I'd rather just work with the FBI? Can't she say that?
She probably could at least have a major say. The problem is it is his jurisdiction, and he should be cooperating with the FBI. I mean, that's the big question. That typically you can't say, hey, I want to pull out. What you could do, and I have heard reports of this, you could actually bring in some of your own public, PIs, private investigators. And there were reports that a number of them were sort of around the house a couple days ago. You could bring out some outside. The other thing, that I would have done, and obviously everything's hindsight. I can't even imagine how Savannah's doing. It's just, it is so heartbreaking. And I told you, I know Savannah. So to me, this is just absolutely gut wrenching. And she's a wonderful woman. And I just, I've heard so many great things about her mother. I'm still praying, that her mother comes home safely, that this is just, prolonged, but that she will be back home safe and sound. But The other thing you could do is you could also increase the reward. You can make the reward so tempting. And it's a lot now. It's 200,000. But at one point, Sandra, I remember it was just like 50,000 and it was even less than that at first. It was, they usually step it up. But I think, wouldn't you put like a huge amount? And I'd be going all over the country saying, please donate to this reward so we can make it so appealing. Your thoughts about that, Sandra?
Well, I certainly would do that, but I still feel the other thing that I said, maybe the other sheriff should step aside and let the other team just do the job. It's too many people in the pot.
Well, it's too many people, but that's a good thing if they're organized. The bad news is, just like you said, if they're fighting against each other and if he's being territorial, that's disgraceful, Sandra. You're right.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Franklin, New Jersey, where a man who collapsed while shoveling snow was saved by police officers who used CPR. The officers went to an area after they got a report of an unconscious man. The man who was working for his employer was out shoveling snow when he suddenly collapsed. Once on the scene, the officers found the man was not breathing and had no pulse. So they immediately began CPR and started using a defibrillator. After several rounds of CPR and 2 defibrillator shocks, the man regained a pulse and thankfully began breathing on his own. He was then taken to a hospital and has since made a full recovery, thanks to the great work of the Franklin Township, New Jersey police officers who were there in the nick of time to save this man's life. Well, speaking of police, you can't make this up. Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee, who has been a big defund the police Democrat, just had her car stolen. And guess what happened? A couple days before, her office was broken into. So what did she do? She called 911. It's interesting. So I guess when they're in trouble, they call 911, but defund the police in general. Hopefully they do make an arrest regardless of her crazy politics. Also tonight, this is crazy. There's a guy from Albany, New York, and he rammed his car into a Nevada power station. It's being looked at as a terrorism-related event, potentially. The driver of the vehicle, it's a 23-year-old man from Albany. He had communicated with his family before the crash, saying that he was going to do some sort of self-harm and do something that was going to put him on the news. He referenced himself as a terrorist in a message to his mother. That's pretty frightening. Well, authorities, when they found the man, he tried to crash through this power station, which has connections to the Hoover Dam. So that's obviously a big deal. Well, luckily, nobody was hurt, and there was no significant damage to the power station or the dam. But at this guy's home, they discovered body armor, shotguns, assault-style rifles, flamethrowers, a whole bunch of stuff, some very extremist material. And a whole bunch of firearms in addition to that, as well as explosives. Pretty scary stuff. The guy took his own life at the end of all this after being surrounded by law enforcement. And also tonight, another crazy thing in Australia, in Brisbane, a synagogue there had an attack by a vehicle as well. A guy in a utility truck struck down the gates of a very famous synagogue there. Luckily, nobody was hurt. And of course, you think of Australia because of that terrible attack where those Islamists opened fire at Bondi Beach, killing so many of the worshipers at a big Jewish event that took place there. And that was obviously so heartbreaking. And Australia said that they were going to beef up security. Looks like they didn't do, obviously, very much, unfortunately, and need to certainly do more. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Meantime, we're talking about the big decision from the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, a 6-3 decision against President Trump and his tariffs. And earlier today on Katz and Cosby, we talked to Laura Trump about this decision and what it means and what she thinks her father-in-law will do next.
Yeah, well, it's a shame because, you look at the good the tariffs have done really for an entire country, an entire world. You see $175 billion has come back to the United States. They have been obviously great leverage in order to see so many new trade agreements made and trade deals renegotiated by this president. And then you look at the fact that wars have literally been settled, as the president has noted many times, because of these tariffs. It's just a shame that, the Supreme Court made this ruling. And I don't think the president minced any words about it. And I think the great news is that we have a president who doesn't just take no for an answer. He says, well, if you're saying I can't do it this way, I'll find another way. He obviously put that out that he's going to do a 10% global tariff overall. I just think it's a shame because, there was so much positive momentum based on those tariffs, despite what all the naysayers had to say initially. And now he's got to find another avenue. But I'll tell you what, if there's any person that can figure it out and make a lemonade out of lemons, it's President Donald J. Trump.
That is for sure. He could do a whole lemonade stand. This guy, I brought it up earlier, he's like Rocky. He's like climbing up the steps in Philadelphia. No matter the fight, he's still climbing, he's still going. And that's what you want in a president of the United States. And here's Professor Alan Dershowitz with his take right after that decision came down.
Look, the president is smarter than the Supreme Court justices and most of the legislatures on this. He understood this immediately. What he said was, I'll do it in a different way. I'll do it by a different name. And that's what he's going to do. What he's told his people tonight is, I want you to stay up all night, and I want you to figure out ways of doing the same thing without running afoul of the power of Congress to control revenue raising. The whole Article 1 gives Congress the power to raise revenues. If it's about raising revenues, about taxes, and of course the Chief Justice thinks everything's a tax, and he thought this was a tax. And if it's a tax, of course the legislature is always going to prevail. But the president has to say this is not just a tax. This is me implementing the foreign policy of the United States. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see much of the same with different names, different concepts under different rubrics, and the president's going to prevail on this one way or another. He's going to prevail.
So President Trump is going to keep fighting on tariffs. You just heard it. He is going to do this 10% across the board. He says he's still going forward. They've been effective and they've been bringing in money for the American public. And he's also fighting clearly on ice. It's going to be interesting. Next week, of course, is the big State of the Union. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, too, as to what you think he needs to say. Because a lot of Democrats right now are planning to boycott the State of the Union. I think that's disgraceful. I think Democrats, everybody should be attending the State of the Union. It's the State of the Union of the United States of America. Whether you like the president or not, the Democrats should be there. I hated it when I saw Nancy Pelosi famously rip up the State of the Union address. I hated it when Al Green was wagging his little cane, calling for Trump to be impeached. Remember, he did that at the last one. I mean, there's been some really disgraceful behavior that they couldn't even clap for little DJ Daniels. Remember the boy who's been getting all of these different awards from different sheriff's departments around the country and getting deputized, and he has brain cancer. And then it came time to applaud for very sweet, beautiful, and definitely inspiring DJ Daniels. And they couldn't even clap for him. They couldn't clap for angel moms. These are the ones who've lost their loved ones because of violence due to illegal immigrants. You hear a horrible story of what happens to some of these women and men at the hands of these illegals. And yet what happens? The family comes heroically to share their story, to do it before the world at the State of the Union. President Trump shines a light on them to give them hope and to make them feel like they can clearly make a difference in this world. It's really beautiful. But what happens? The Democrats wouldn't even stand up for them either. It's really become so disgusting and so partisan. So I want to hear from you what you think he needs to say and what you think of Democrats that are planning on not even attending the event. They're planning on going to sort of an alternative State of the Union address with Joy Reid and some of these other folks who clearly have Trump derangement syndrome. President Trump's also fighting against ICE to keep them in these places. He's trying to make sure that ICE is fully, supported. This whole thing with the Department of Homeland Security is such bumkiss. That's a nice way to say it, right? Because ICE fully needs to be assisted. These men and women, they're being doxxed, they're being harassed, their families are, and yet the Democrats are fighting them tooth and nail. And no place, I think, epitomizes it as Minneapolis. And I had to play this for you guys. I couldn't believe this. This is like the doozy of the week. I should be doing like a doozy of the week comment. This doozy of the week coming from a member of the Somali community. Now, remember, the whole Somali community tied to fraud and $9 billion, just the tip of the iceberg in the Somali community there in Minnesota alone. And what's going on? Well, the Somali community is now coming out, and now they are saying they would like reparations for what they say was the terrible anguish that ICE inflicted on them. I mean, you can't make it up. You got to hear this. Listen to this member of the Somali community saying, terrible ICE. We're just some sweet, wonderful people and had nothing to do with the $9 billion with a B dollar fraud.
Lead programs fits into our criteria of small business owners, not those who make $200,000 and above. We don't make that much amount, and we have been suffering since the crisis of ICE. We also demand an immediate help to evictions so families are not pushed to homelessness during the crisis. Our community deserves accountability. Our community deserves safety. We need also justice for those who lost their lives defending the community.
We're demanding reparations. We're demanding accountability for ICE coming into our community because of the illegal criminal migrants, some with some very bad histories like murder and rape and stuff like that. How mean of the ICE agents to take them out of the community. And the fact that there was a $9 billion fraud that seems to have barely anybody held accountable for it. And yet they're trying to point the finger at ICE. That really is, as we say, cojones. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Eduardo in Tampa on line 2. Go ahead, Eduardo.
Yeah, Rita, I think the president should definitely make an effort to go through Mike Johnson in Congress, because keep in mind, if for some reason you get a Democrat in the White House, they're just going to overturn this, even if there wasn't any decision today. So we need to run this stuff through Congress, and we need to get rid of the filibuster. That's another key word that, we need to emphasize more, because if they get into power, they're going to get rid of the filibuster, believe me or not.
Yeah. And you know what? Obviously that is certainly a very divisive issue, but you're right, or controversial, I should say, because even there was a lot of Republicans say, you got to follow the law. We don't want to open that door. But I agree to your point that the minute the Democrats come in, they will certainly do it. They're going to, destroy the filibuster. They're going to try to impeach him. They're going to try to impeach all of his cabinet. If they win any of the chambers in November, and it's only a few months away.
The executive orders that President Trump did.
Yes.
When they get in, that's what they're going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Day one. And that's why, you bring up, Eduardo, a really important point. They need to start getting a lot of these things that Trump is doing codified by Congress, because then it can't be, say a Democrat president comes in, then they can't change it with the swoop of a hand, for that reason, but also even
Once it
sooner.
Law, that's official. They can judge shop till
yeah, they can keep trying. You're
right. They're not going
right.
to be able to overturn that. Yeah, once it becomes a law. So
Absolutely. And also think about if the Democrats get in charge of these chambers, they're not going to want any of these things to be approved or passed. They'll block anything that, no matter how good it is, it could be like curing kids cancer. And if Trump's name is attached to it, they say, no, it's terrible. You know, that's not nice to the pharmaceutical companies. That's what I think they would say. But I think your point is a good one for a lot of reasons. A, if there's a Democratic president, everything's off the window, like you just said. And then the other is, if they do get control of one of the houses, they're just going to keep gridlock. It's going to be gridlock central. Don't you think, Eduardo, if they win in November?
Yeah. And let me just add to what you're talking about, the State of the Union coming up. I need to say, particularly if we have this attack on a limited attack on Iran, the president could say that this is going to be in the cause of national security, and this protects the Middle East and also protects the U.S. homeland, because Iran's all over the place. They're even in Venezuela, where we just were with Maduro. They're all over the place.
Yes, they are. And you're right. And I think, listen, there are a lot of Democrats that would like to see regime change and would like to see Iran decapitated militarily in so many ways. Although, you wonder, I hate to say that. I'm so skeptical these days, Eduardo, because I brought up, they wouldn't even clap for DJ Daniel, that really adorable young man with the brain cancer surgeries. So I don't even know if they'd clap for Trump, if he had regime change in Iran. That's how ludicrous it is.
No, anything that has Trump's name on it, you're right. There you go.
But how sad? But look, the good news is he knows that. Clearly, the Republicans know that. The Democrats know it too. And he just has to forge ahead with what he believes and what the American public believes are good for the American society and good for the free world. Because just like you said, they're not only doing America a favor, they're doing the free world a favor if they can create this moment in Iran, which sounds like it's just right there, almost ready for it. So the question is, when will President do it? If he will do it. My gut tells me he's going to, and my gut tells me it's going to be soon. Eduardo, thank you very much. Everybody, we're going to continue your awesome calls after the break. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to the Rita Cosby Show on a busy Friday night.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And allegations of the sheriff in the Nancy Guthrie case not sharing information with the FBI, being too consumed with the media and other things. That's not a good sign, because it is 3 weeks now. That's a long time. And I am stunned. They have not figured it out. There's supposed to be like 400 law enforcement officials that are helping, including the FBI. But if the local sheriffs are not providing information, according to this report, with the FBI like they should, maybe that explains part of the problem. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to the Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to EJ in Rochester on line 2. EJ, your thoughts?
Yes, ma'am. About the State of the Union address next week.
Yep.
If the Democrats are all going to be out on the mall or wherever they're going to be, if I was president, I'd invite everybody, a lot of pro-Trump people, to come in and sit in their seats.
That's a great idea. Or you know what I would do, EJ? I'd actually invite some people who may not get the opportunity to be in there. I'd invite DJ Daniels and all of his friends, and I'd invite Angel Moms. I'd invite just some really wonderful people who've gone through difficult times. Even if you don't, acknowledge them, just to have them enjoy that experience and feel like they're a part of history. That's a great idea, EJ. I love that. And how many people you think will not be a part of it, EJ? Because there are reports that there's quite a bit of them that are going to skip out and do this People's State of the Union at the National Mall. It's the one that's put together by Joy Reid and some others. I think that's a disgrace to shun the president. I don't like the booing. I don't like this. If you don't like it, just shut up and sit down. But don't sit there and boo. And if it's something like you're heralding somebody that's not political, stand up and clap. I mean, I bring up the DJ Daniel because it just shows that they are so over the top political that they can't even applaud for a kid who with cancer. I mean, EJ, is that the bottom of the basement or what?
Oh, yeah. Now, the only Democrat I'd let in would be Fetterman.
Right. I'd herald him. I agree.
And I'd lock the doors, lock them all out so they couldn't come in.
Ah, look at you. Yeah. Or if you're not going to show decorum, don't come in. You know what's so sad, EJ? It's become so political. I mean, I'm trying to remember last time. There were only just maybe like 2 or 3 moments, I feel like, where they clapped. Like even things that were like, America's a great country, and they wouldn't even clap for that. I mean, it was like because Trump was saying it. Like, we've come to a bad place. I don't know how we turn this around. What do you think, EJ?
Well, we've got to get back to patriotism, and these people have got to learn. We've got to. This is going to be America, and Americans on top all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to do. So,
I agree. And it's also, to your point, when America is strong, it makes everybody strong. Republicans, Democrats, independents. And you're right. We got to be patriotic. We also have to be civil. I mean, you can disagree with people, but to wag your cane at them or to rip up the State of the Union address, that's a disgrace.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.